He had mansions, yachts, and millions in the bank, and he thought the law could never touch him. But on one cold morning in Boston, the richest man in the room walked into court and walked out in handcuffs. This is how Lucas Vance's empire burned to the ground. Boston, Massachusetts. The city had been talking about this trial for months, and now, Judgment Day was finally here. Outside the courthouse, the air felt charged, almost electric. Reporters jostled for the best spots, microphones ready, while ordinary citizens gathered just to witness history. Some came for justice. Others came for curiosity. But everyone was here for the same reason, to see what would happen to Lucas Vance. Inside, the benches were full. Shoulder to shoulder, strangers sat together, leaning in to whisper rumors they'd heard from neighbors or read online. Stories about his yachts, his mansions, his parties. Stories about families who had lost everything. And then, the doors opened. Lucas Vance walked in as if he owned the place. Tall, broad-shouldered, his suit perfectly tailored, his shoes shining like mirrors. His hair slicked back under the harsh courtroom lights. But it wasn't just his appearance, it was his attitude. He didn't look like a man about to stand trial for stealing millions. He looked like a celebrity arriving for a photo shoot. And then came that smirk, the kind of smirk that says, "I'm still in control." The crowd's whispers grew louder, but Lucas didn't care. He glanced around like the people were there to admire him, not to judge him. Then, the moment of quiet authority arrived. The bailiff's voice rang through the courtroom. "All rise for the Honorable Judge Eleanor Brooks." Everyone stood, except Lucas Vance. He stayed seated, flipping through his legal pad like this was some minor inconvenience. His lawyer leaned in, urging him to stand, but Lucas simply waved him off. Judge Brooks noticed. She stopped mid-step, her sharp eyes locking on him. For a moment, the room went so silent you could hear the rustle of clothing and the hum of the overhead lights. She said nothing, but her silence spoke volumes. That was the first sign of the storm that was coming. Lucas Vance was not just rich, he was headline rich. People once called him a genius. His company, Vance Global Holdings, had been praised as a leader in the world of investments. He had a penthouse in New York, a mansion in Miami, a fleet of luxury cars, and even a yacht the size of a small hotel. But behind that glittering image was something rotten. Lucas wasn't building dreams, he was stealing them. He convinced hard-working families, small business owners, and retirees to invest their savings in his company. He promised them security. He promised them growth. He promised them a future. And then, he took it all away. Retirement accounts were drained. College funds vanished. People's homes were lost. For Lucas, it was just business. For his victims, it was the end of the life they had built. When investigators finally caught him, they uncovered mountains of evidence, fake documents, altered bank records, and even emails where Lucas gave direct orders to lie to investors. Still, he didn't look worried. "This will blow over," he told reporters from the gates of his oceanside estate. "It always does." For months, his expensive lawyers delayed the trial. But nothing could erase the truth, and nothing could silence the voices of his victims. The first to speak was Maria Delgado. A widowed mother of 3, Maria had invested everything she had with Lucas Vance. She believed him when he promised her a brighter future. Instead, she lost her home. On the witness stand, her voice shook as she described the day the bank took it. "I begged them not to take the house," she said, tears streaming down her face. "My kids and I slept in our car for 2 weeks." Lucas didn't even look up. Then came David Harper, a retired paramedic who had spent 3 decades saving for a comfortable retirement. He had given his trust to Lucas Vance. That trust cost him everything. "I spent 30 years helping people in their worst moments," David said, his voice heavy with pain. "And this man burned my future to the ground." The courtroom was quiet, heavy, but in the middle of it all, Lucas leaned back in his chair, scrolled on his phone, and smirked. Then came the day the room gasped as one. The prosecutor read aloud an email Lucas had sent to his team. "Make the numbers look good. We need these suckers to sign." Maria shook her head. David clenched his fists. The words hung in the air like a poison. When the prosecutor asked Lucas if he recognized the email, he didn't deny it. He leaned into the microphone and said, "Yes. But let's not pretend it means what you think. It's just business talk. You wouldn't understand." The arrogance was breathtaking. Judge Brooks cut in sharply. "Mr. Vance, this is not a boardroom. What's your tone?" But Lucas didn't care. As the trial went on, more witnesses came forward. More evidence piled up, and with every day, Lucas's behavior grew worse. He interrupted testimonies with sarcastic laughs, rolled his eyes at the judge, and whispered to his lawyer during key moments. Even when Maria stood again, her hands trembling, to tell him directly, "I trusted you with everything I had, and you destroyed my family's future," Lucas barely looked at her. Judge Brooks's patience was thinning. The prosecution's case was nearly airtight. Yet Lucas still sat there, calm, certain, convinced he would walk away just like before. Boston woke up that morning with a sense of anticipation. The trial of Lucas Vance had gripped the city for weeks. But today was different. Today was Judgment Day. Outside the courthouse, the street buzzed with energy. Victims arrived early, determined to witness the moment justice would be served. Reporters crowded the steps, cameras ready, their breath visible in the crisp morning air. Inside, the gallery filled quickly. Every seat was taken. At the defense table, Lucas Vance sat with the same casual ease he had shown since the trial began. His suit was immaculate, his hair perfectly in place, and yes, there was that same grin he'd worn on day one. He didn't look like a man facing decades behind bars. He looked like someone convinced he was untouchable. Then the bailiff's voice rang out. "All rise for the Honorable Judge Eleanor Brooks." The room stood as Judge Brooks entered. She moved with calm precision, taking her seat at the bench. In her hands was the verdict. She began speaking in a measured, deliberate tone. "Lucas Vance, you have been found guilty on all counts: fraud, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice." The air in the room shifted. Lucas's smirk didn't fade, but his eyes flickered, just for a moment. Judge Brooks continued. "The evidence against you is overwhelming. You manipulated, exploited, and destroyed the lives of countless people for your own gain. Throughout this trial, you have shown no remorse, no respect for this court, and no compassion for your victims." Her voice grew colder. "Justice is not about wealth, power, or privilege. It is about accountability." And then, she delivered the sentence. 25 years in federal prison. No possibility of parole. The room erupted. Gasps, murmurs, the shuffle of people turning to one another in disbelief. But Judge Brooks wasn't finished. "All assets under your name will be liquidated immediately, and the proceeds will be returned to the victims of your crimes." Maria Delgado's hands flew to her mouth. Tears streamed down her face. David Harper closed his eyes and let out a long, quiet breath. Lucas's chair screeched against the floor as he stood. "You can't do this to me," he shouted, his voice echoing. "I'm Lucas Vance. You can't treat me like some common criminal." Judge Brooks's gavel slammed down. "Mr. Vance, sit down." But he kept going, shouting about appeals, threatening reputations, insisting this was all a mistake. The bailiff stepped forward. "Escort the defendant out of my courtroom," Judge Brooks ordered. As they led him away, the gallery erupted in applause, a rare moment in any courtroom, but one that felt entirely fitting. Years of frustration, fear, and loss poured out in that sound. Outside, the crowd gathered on the courthouse steps. Cameras and microphones rushed toward Maria Delgado. "How do you feel after the verdict?" one reporter asked. Maria hesitated, her voice still shaky. "I feel relieved. But no sentence can undo what he did. My kids and I are still rebuilding. At least now, we have hope." Nearby, David Harper spoke with another journalist. "It's not just about the years he's getting," he said. "It's about the message. People like him think they are untouchable. Today proves they are not." In her chambers, Judge Brooks sat quietly, gazing out the window at the commotion below. She didn't feel triumphant. Justice wasn't about personal victory. She felt something deeper, the steady satisfaction of doing what was right, even when the path was hard. She knew the restitution money would help some victims get back on their feet. But she also knew the emotional wounds would take longer to heal. Weeks later, a letter arrived at the courthouse. It was from Maria's youngest son. "Dear Judge Brooks," it read. "Thank you for standing up for my family. Thank you for showing us that people like Lucas Vance can't get away with hurting people like us. You didn't just give us justice, you gave us a second chance." The judge read the letter twice, then placed it carefully in her desk drawer. Some reminders, she thought, were worth keeping. The trial of Lucas Vance became more than a local headline. It was discussed on national television, debated in cafes, and shared across social media. People told their own stories of betrayal and injustice, drawing courage from the verdict. And through it all, one truth became clear. No one, not even the wealthy, the connected, the powerful, is above the law. Because in the end, power fades. Lies collapse, but truth endures.